Welcome to We Question and Learn. This is Tom Pies. Today from Allegheny Health Network, the president of Saint Vincent Hospital, Dr. Christopher Clark. Welcome.
Thank you, Tom.
Now let's talk about you for about a minute or so. You're an Erie native from day one, right? Is that true?
I am. I'm originally from Erie, born and raised in this wonderful community.
Yeah.
Love the place that I live for sure. And I was actually born at Saint Vincent Hospital.
As a lifelong Erie resident, you were a practicing physician, right? I mean,
Correct.
For how many years?
Well, I came back to start practice in Erie back in 1999, so it's been just over 20 years, and little known fact, I still practice.
Even with all the responsibilities of the hospital?
Correct.
Yeah.
It relates to our original mission for sure, but it also relates to the Allegheny Health Network. We promote ourselves certainly as being clinician or physician-led. And for the most part, all the physicians in leadership positions across the network are also practicing physicians. So I want to do it both for myself personally and professionally, but it's also something that we promote within our network too.
I think it's fascinating that a major and professional organization like the Allegheny Health Network, and I'm going to ask you a little bit about that, would take into consideration having a local physician with a local perspective, local patients. You walked in here and people recognized you as someone you've treated and taken care of.
Right.
Was that part of their motive or scheme, or was it just they're looking at you and saying you're the correct person for the job?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how strategic it was per se. Looking back, it's been just over 2 years since I have been awarded this position, but certainly I am privileged to be in the role. It is truly an honor. But if you do look back and look at my record, like you said, I've been a practicing physician in this community. I connected in this community in a number of different ways. And in my professional background, I had administrative experience ranging from medical education to hospital quality to general hospital administration. And then finally, I actually worked for Highmark. Another little known fact is that I actually
I didn't know that.
spent time, as a part of the enterprise. I worked for the health plan side of the business for about 2.5 years and broadened my experience understanding the payer side. So I think I was in the perfect position to be awarded this role. And again, it's truly an honor. There's different perspectives out there, but we're certainly proud as an enterprise. And when I say enterprise, I say Highmark Health. I'm referring to Highmark Health, our parent organization, which is made up of a number of different business units, but notably Highmark Blue Cross Blue Shield, the health plan side, and then, of course, the Allegheny Health Network, which is the group of hospitals, 8, soon to be 9 hospitals.
Wonderful.
So we are very proud to promote ourselves as what's called a integrated delivery and financing system, where the payer and provider systems work very closely with one another.
This is a solution to healthcare for the individual. Would you say that?
It sure is. I mean, healthcare is becoming more and more like any other industry where patients are treated like customers or consumers, right? So, and it is a bit controversial, but at the same time, there's well-known benefits. And so we like to promote ourselves as putting the patient first, putting the patient in the center of everything that we do. On the payer side of the business, they're called the member, but we work hand in hand with in ways to do what's right for our patients and or members.
Now, what is St. Vincent doing for our community relative to what you just said? You're building things, first of all. Can we talk about that?
Yeah,
I think that's important.
It is. First and foremost, to maximize the patient experience, to make sure that we try to do as much as we can for our patients in this community to get the outcomes that they expect, the quality of care that they deserve, while trying to control costs of care. One way of doing that is to invest. And that's exactly what's going on in this community, is that Highmark Health is investing in northwestern Pennsylvania and AHN St. Vincent. So going back a couple years at least, the numbers somewhere in the range of $140 to $150 million are being invested in our hospital, in this region, for our patients. And we can talk about some of those projects.
Talk. Well, the infrastructure is critical to having facilities for the doctors, the patients, as you say. We should say the patients and the doctors. But that's an incredible amount of money.
It is.
So you think it's important.
It is. I guess, again, we're trying to go after maximizing all the experiences that we can for our patients. So it does result in better care, more services. Patients don't have to travel as much.
What's in these buildings?
Right.
Offices,
So
suites. What's in these buildings?
the biggest project is our brand new emergency department. So the building actually that it's being housed in is called the infill building. And it's simply because it connects our main patient tower to one of our professional buildings called the Hardner building.
Yes.
So
Downtown.
and it's right on our campus,
Right
right
on
in
the
the mid-city area there. So our brand new emergency department is in and of itself a $50 million project. And that will house our brand new ER plus an expansion of our operating rooms. So it's over 100,000 square foot facility, and we're increasing the capacity to take care of patients. But in a number of ways, we're also improving how care will be delivered for those that enter into the hospital through the emergency department.
Wow. What's different about hospitals, say, from your memory starting off? I remember going in emergency rooms and being totally scared. The ambiance was not good when I was a child.
Yeah.
Then going on, remember the lobby at Saint Vincent, which was lovely? That was a huge capital improvement. It was an ambiance improvement, but it comforted the patients. What's it like now? What are you doing that's different, or is that a continuation of the plan?
Yeah, so to your
What's it
point,
like? Yeah.
it's a significant percentage of patients that come into the hospital for observation or admission, inpatient admission status, come through that emergency department. So it is an entry point for sure. So we're definitely improving ways for patients to be taken care of through that setting. So first and foremost, when they walk into the brand new emergency department, they'll be immediately greeted by a brand new waiting area, improved triage space, much more private compared to current standards. And of course, we'll have a more secure environment too. We'll actually have a stronger presence for security, including a metal detector. So that's just the entry point. And then, of course, we can move into discussions about how we'll be changing care delivery within the emergency
Let's talk about that,
department
because
in
I
other
think
ways.
I saw one photo. It's entirely different. The world, medical world is different. You just don't walk in and stand there anymore.
That's right.
Right?
So the goal is to improve throughput, improve that timeliness of care, reducing waiting times. And so we can do that in and of itself by how the emergency department is laid out. So right now it's set up in a way that it's outgrown its space. For example, it's too small for the number of patients that we see, almost 70,000 patients a year through our emergency department. So we now will, again, have a private area for triage, and then based on their condition, based on their level.
A private area.
A very private area for triage.
So no people sitting around injured, so to speak.
Correct.
Right.
And we can get diagnostic testing done much more quickly. So if it's, again, based on the level of acuity, of course, if someone looks very, very sick and they come in through the regular ambulatory entrance, we'll get them right back to one of our resuscitation,
where they
larger
belong.
resuscitation rooms.
Yeah.
But if we're still trying to figure out what's going on, or they're obviously lower acuity, they'll move into a special space which has its own waiting area, for example. So once diagnostics get started, like an EKG or lab work or maybe imaging, then we can move them into a different waiting area where we can make space for the next patient. So the whole goal is to create a better patient experience. And one way of doing that is to improve timeliness of care
So
delivery.
even the rooms, the layout, the waiting area, it's entirely different than what people imagined it to be, say, 5 years ago.
That's correct.
Yeah.
The lower acuity areas are a little bit smaller. They're actually called vertical rooms, which means that the patient can actually be evaluated either seated or laying down, which is called supine.
Yeah.
Of course, if they've got other conditions going on that require more extensive evaluation, we have the special space for that. And then I guess another example of a change going forward is a much larger area for behavioral health patients. Which
Address that. That's different.
Well, it is different. We do have space for that now in our current setting, but we again have outgrown it. So now we have a larger space. It is a very common entry point for patients with behavioral health conditions.
Yeah.
And some behavioral health patients need to be admitted to the hospital for the seriousness of what's going on. and of course, Saint Vincent does have an inpatient behavioral health unit.
Okay.
So we do now have special space within our emergency department for those kinds of evaluations. And then if they need our services on the inpatient side, we can certainly admit them to the hospital.
How many caregivers does it take to staff this new technology? This is all different.
That's right.
It demands more people?
It is a very large staff. That's a really good question. So we've got staff dedicated to each of the areas that I just described, lower acuity, more middle or higher acuity areas. Of course, the behavioral health space has its own staff as well. So we are increasing our number of employees in our emergency department.
Number of employees, round numbers that you have now?
It's around 10 to 15 people that will be growing
in that area.
That area. We'll have the dedicated providers for each of those areas as well, whether it be mid-level providers that help us out in the lower acuity space, or the 3 to 4 emergency doctors that are working at a time during their emergency room shifts. And then of course the behavioral health team.
Let's talk about the size of the hospital. How large is St. Vincent?
Yeah, we have 371 licensed beds, and I commonly have been referencing how much busier we are these days.
Yeah.
Whether it be
we'll address that in a second.
through the emergency department, or in our surgical areas, in our obstetrical areas, we've definitely seen an uptick in the number of patients that we're taking care of.
And physicians, number of physicians at the hospital, round numbers.
So we have just about 400 providers on our medical staff.
Wow.
Right? And just about half are employed. So, and that's inclusive of people that work on the outpatient side as well.
Okay.
So that's not all the number of providers that we see that just work in the hospital setting.
I'll go back to something you said, 70,000 patients a year.
Emergency room visits.
Or a population, metro 270 maybe, 274. That's isn't that an outrageous amount of people, an unusual amount of people? What, am I
It is a high number. You're right.
And you said it's increasing lately.
It is. And we're trying to get our arms around that, because for the last 5 or so years, we've seen numbers of ER patients decrease for a number of reasons. Because we like to say, because we had done a better job on the outpatient side in steering patients away from the emergency room when it's not being appropriately used. Certainly insurance design can steer people away when they have cost-sharing expectations. That contributes as well. So there's a number of reasons why that has happened. But for the last year, we've seen at least a 5% increase in the number of emergency room visits. So
that's a symptom of the community. It could happen anywhere.
It can.
Or is it Erie?
And we think people are choosing to go to AHN St. Vincent more as well.
So that's a number that would change that. Oh, that's very interesting.
That's right.
Can we talk about? Oh, go ahead.
But we are
My
the busiest
apologies.
emergency room in our network, and
You're
we're the busiest emergency room in our network, because you definitely called out that the number of ER visits that we have.
Yeah.
So Allegheny General Hospital down in Pittsburgh, which is the largest hospital in our network, actually has a few less ER visits, and I think it just is because there's so
less
many
than
other
70?
choices.
No, you mean proportionate to the population.
No, I'm saying less than 70,000.
This is 1.1, 1.2 million metro down there.
But there's more choices.
Choices.
There's
I
more-
got you.
There's more
Forgive me.
locations for
and
Pittsburgh.
it's harder to move around in Pittsburgh, as we know.
Correct.
It's
But
harder
in
to-
Erie, there's less choices for emergency room type care, and that's why we see more than any other hospital in the network.
With this big affiliation, which is, I think, important to the community, there are services that are available here that basically were not available before. I remember going back to the robotic surgery. That's interesting. But there's other things you do
Sure.
that are different than they were before.
That's right. That's right. Well, I'm starting with cardiac procedures. We're so proud to be offering newer cardiac procedures like the trans-aortic valve replacement, TAVR procedure, that can be a less invasive. It's still invasive, but certainly less invasive than open heart surgery.
That's fascinating. When I was reading about that's not in the old days. They just let's do
That's
the valves, right? I mean,
That's right.
And today it's physically. Let's talk more in layman's terms. It's not as invasive in what way?
In the way that the procedure is done through a catheter. So
Wow.
a lot of folks understand when the one of the ways to study the heart function is to do a heart catheterization. So usually they'll go in through a vessel in the groin, but sometimes they'll go in through the arm. But with this procedure, the aortic valve can be replaced via the catheter as opposed to open heart.
I watch too much medical TV, where you see all this procedure going on for a valve, family members having it done, and today it's
for certain patients,
if appropriate.
And it actually ends up being more the high-risk patients that this would be better for because the open heart procedure can be more stressful on them.
Yeah.
So that's where we've seen huge benefit in those patients. So not only do they have less risk for complications because they don't have the open heart procedure, they can actually be discharged sooner than they would have been if compared to if they had an open heart
from an
procedure.
objective point of view, I have something terribly wrong. I need a bypass or something even more serious. That can be done here.
Absolutely. Again, there's so many more things that we're proud to be promoting so that patients don't have to travel further away to get their care. So that's the whole goal.
Are you building other things? I know you're building something else. So what are you building elsewhere in the community?
The four major projects.
Yeah, good.
And we can spend time talking about the Cancer Center for sure. But the first one that was opened up was our Eastside Health and Wellness Pavilion. So that was opened in Harbor Creek back in April.
Nice.
We opened our first Health and Wellness Pavilion back in May of 2016 in Mill Creek on the west side. So that was our first major project that was completed just this year. Our second was our Women and Infant Center, which was opened back in May of this year. So completely renovated floor of the hospital dedicated for our female patients, specifically labor and delivery, postpartum care. It certainly complements our neonatal intensive care unit as well. And then our third project I just talked about, our brand new emergency department and expansion of our operating rooms. And then finally, the last major project of this year to be completed, scheduled for completion in November, is our AHN Cancer Institute at Saint Vincent. So a comprehensive.
This is at the main campus?
It's right
It's
on our
not
campus.
a separate building? Okay.
It's a separate building.
Yeah, it's okay.
It's a separate building on the campus, and it's on 25th in Myrtle. And but it's centralizing our cancer care services on our campus. So that's where the oncological services will be delivered, and any other ancillary services will be either there or with physicians on our campus.
This may be not an ignorant question, a more base question. Who decides how this all happens? No offense. It's done for a reason, but you just don't spend $140 million willy-nilly. I'm sure there's designers, physicians, yourself, your staff,
absolutely,
your board.
A lot, all of those contributors.
So this
that
had to have been
listed.
planned for because it's happening so quickly.
It
really,
seems
from
that
a construction point of view?
It seems. So
Yeah.
prior to the announcement of all these major projects was made back in February of 2017. But to your point,
Before you got there, right?
Technically before I got there,
Yeah,
although
no
I was
offense.
working on the Highmark side of the business
That's right.
at the time.
So you were there,
I had a
yeah.
general awareness
Yeah,
of
yeah.
what was going on.
Yeah.
But even, after the announcement, a lot of work has gone into it, particularly with the team that we've assembled at Saint Vincent. So, but all those contributors you listed, physicians, the board, Highmark officials, AHN officials, even patients contributed to
So this wasn't willy-nilly
or
or some McDonald's type footprint that's imprinted on the Northwest. But this was a very strategic, designed plan.
Absolutely, with the patient, what they're looking for in mind.
So physicians, you're hiring physicians. Now, this is not unusual, I guess, but I mean in a place like Erie, who sometimes gets lost between three metropolitan areas, it seemed like you presented a list at a recent Rotary presentation of almost 13 or 14, forgive me if I have this wrong, new physicians or specific highly trained, highly educated, highly skilled physicians that will be here. Did I read that right?
So you did. So this is, I think, really straightforward and clear cut with how this is a part of what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
So that patients don't have to travel.
Yeah.
So we're introducing new doctors and their associated services and
Here.
what they do in this community.
Yeah.
And it is a challenge to recruit to
Oh, yeah.
northwestern Pennsylvania.
Although, as
into
we
Erie.
know, it's wonderful. But sometimes folks that are spoiled by metropolitan appurtenances don't enjoy this as much.
That's right.
That's a polite way of putting it.
It's true, but of
Yeah.
course, to your point though, there's so many more advantages to promote about living.
Well, and it's a
in this
wonderful place
community.
to live, and probably will take a lot of stress out of their lives to a good degree, just commuting.
The commuting, the cost of living, it's a
yeah.
wonderful place to raise
We have
a
wonderful
family.
real estate, beautiful homes being built everywhere here.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So, and of course, a four-season community, lots to do.
Yeah,
Year
and it's not
round.
hard to get out of town, and that's not because we want to, but it's easy to leave here. You can go anywhere in the world
That's right.
quickly.
That's exactly.
So this has
right.
a huge. So you're talking how many physicians?
So it's literally upwards of over 30 physicians
30.
over the last 2 years. So it depends on when you start the accumulation of
And
the
those
list.
are here.
These are
the doctors
here
reside here.
From starting last year
Yeah.
till the end of this year of what we're expecting, over 30 new physicians. And a lot of physicians
Mm-hmm.
are new to this community. Now, they would have been, in some circumstances,
Sure.
established and practicing elsewhere, and we've
Yeah.
been successful in recruiting.
But I'm sure
them
they
here.
came and looked and measured their lives, their families' lives. It wasn't an easy decision, but it must have 30 physicians attracted here is a great compliment. The chamber should be listening right now.
It's true.
Yeah.
We certainly have the real estate folks that are paying very close
Yeah,
attention.
they are, aren't they?
They're always very interested in showing these new physicians around for good reason.
And there's a lot to see. Yeah. Well, you grew up here. We're preaching to the choir here.
Right.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
when I meet with every one of our candidates,
Yeah.
it's quite frankly an easy sell. I mean, I'm so passionate about this community, but look what's going on at AHN Saint Vincent.
Oh, yeah.
So whether the investments have direct or indirect
Mm-hmm.
relationship to their specialty, I
Yes.
promote everything going on. Because you can't replicate all these investments in all the different areas.
Yeah.
And that's an easy sell to new physicians. They see the growth, they see the excitement, and so they
It's got to be a great comfort to
self-select.
the community to see that these doctors are here.
That's right.
Specialists.
That's right. From neurosurgery to plastic surgery to colorectal surgery. Of course, we have new primary care physicians and general surgeons as well.
Yes.
This year, we're enhancing our neurohospitalist team.
Wow.
A brand new bariatric surgeon will be joining us very soon.
Yes.
So, and the list goes on and on.
Just that. Talk about the relationship of Allegheny Health Network, the hospitals in your hospital. Are there circumstances where let's get them down to Pittsburgh? That's sort of a base question, and I'm sure you're capable of doing almost everything. But what would be a scenario where you would consider that? Maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to address that.
I will, absolutely. I don't want to profess that we should be doing everything in Erie. Quite frankly, there can be some concern if procedures are being done in Erie and there's a low volume of those procedures. Because we know there is a correlation with good outcomes, high quality, when you have an experienced team doing it day in and day out. So we are self-selecting to do as much as we can in Erie because it's the right thing to do.
Right.
Remember, we recognize it's important to patients to keep care local so they don't have to travel, but we don't want to do things that put them at risk either.
Yeah, so each patient's getting assessed according to their needs.
Correct.
Okay.
So we are doing more, like I said, but we won't be doing heart transplants in Erie.
Yeah.
It wouldn't make sense to do heart transplants.
And that's something
in
that can
Erie.
be planned out
So
and measured and taken care of.
So those would be done at Allegheny General Hospital, and that's what we would.
But the system's all integrated.
It is.
Last question, data. You know, some people are getting very nervous. We're going to have a chip implanted in our wherever, our wrist, and you'll put your hand in your whole medical history. I know there's a lot of legal issues. There's associations that protect the consumer, but isn't it a benefit to have instant access to medical information, especially if you have to send somebody to Pittsburgh for some reason?
Sure. And
maybe-
right now it's pretty seamless with
Is it?
our
Yeah.
record system. We use Epic, which is a nationally recognized electronic health record platform. I will put a plug in for patients' access to information via Epic is very simple. It's called AHN My Chart, and if you're a patient of Saint Vincent, the Allegheny Health Network, you can sign on to this system
Yourself.
very easily yourself. It's a patient portal. It's called AHN My Chart, and you can easily get your information and get your results for testing, for example. You can schedule appointments. You can even participate in virtual visits for minor
I was just going to go,
conditions.
what's the future in that?
The future, to your point about data, there's
Data
a lot
and
more that's
online
coming
healthcare,
with
yeah.
regards to that.
Yeah.
And there are privacy laws that have to be protected as well. But the future is going to involve more telemedicine, for sure.
For sure. Yeah.
And that's we're certainly offering telemedicine present day, but there's a lot more that we're planning on doing in the future. Both being able to offer telemedicine for Erie patients so that they don't have to travel, but then also St. Vincent offering telemedicine, our doctors serving patients in rural communities
Yes.
so that they don't have to travel from their homes.
And your doctors have offices too.
Correct.
Yeah.
So we're doing that right now on a smaller scale, and that will only continue to increase.
In the last couple of minutes, where do you see all this going? I mean, there's got to be some cost effectiveness in spending under $40 million.
Sure.
No offense. You're doing this with a great amount of study and wisdom, I'm sure. What's the value down the road? What do you think is the value down the road?
Sure. It's a simple concept that we still have to prove, right? You have to spend money to save money. Right. And that's ultimately what we're trying to do, is be more cost effective in our care delivery. It's a part of the healthcare value equation. The equation is maximizing outcomes, giving patients the best experience. We're so focused on giving patients the best experience at AHN St. Vincent. Our motto is caring people, caring for you.
Right.
But at the same time, we do have to balance the cost of care, and we have to make sure that it's appropriately utilized care. So that's certainly something that we're sensitive to. But the point is, we definitely have to invest in ourselves in order for patients to get the highest quality care through the facilities, the doctors, the services, the equipment.
And you've been on the other side, this symbiotic relationship with the insurance company.
That's right.
So that's an interesting, we'll have to have you come back for another program. That topic may be a little more biting and a little more complex than what we wanted to talk about today, and that is what's Allegheny Health Network and St. Vincent all about. You did an exemplary presentation here. This was interesting. I learned things I did not know. I think people are not aware of the ability or the technology available in healthcare.
Right.
We're so used to that sitting in the MD's office for a few minutes.
That's right.
But there's so many interesting things that save lives.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we didn't talk about some of the other equipment that we've introduced with the robotics or the new 3T MRI or the new ultrasound for breast imaging.
We'll invite you to come back at your leisure and come talk another half hour. Would you care to do that? That'd be great.
Love to
have you.
Anytime.
And Monica Lewis arranged all this, and she sat quietly. I know she tried to jump in for a few minutes because she does a great job at the hospital for a good number of years, and she's an exemplary employee. An exemplary employee of the kind of people you have there. Monica, thank you for sitting into and patiently listening to this. We'll invite you back, and we thank everyone for listening today. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
I'm Michelle Martin. These days, it seems like just about everybody is choosing sides and doubling down on talking points. Here at NPR, we try to cut through the noise with meaningful and respectful discussions with people from all perspectives, backgrounds, and walks of life. Join the conversation every weekend on All Things Considered from NPR News.
Saturday and Sunday afternoons at 5 on WQLN Radio.
Hi, this is Jeff Hanley, host of Jazz Happening Now. Each week we listen to some of the latest jazz recordings, and I think you'll be thrilled by what today's jazz musicians are doing and saying. The recording industry has changed, but the music is as alive and as vibrant as ever. The future of jazz is happening right now, if you just listen. And please do.
Sunday night at 6 on WQLN Radio.
Welcome to We Question and Learn. This is Tom Pies in the studio today with Becky Weiser from the Erie County Historical Society with all kinds of great information. I'm so glad you're here because thank you for letting us visit your facility, and I'm just so excited about what's happening on West 6th Street. It's marvelous, and I don't want to steal your thunder, but you've got my level of enthusiasm up as to what you folks are doing with the Museum and Historical Society in downtown Erie. And I'm going to let you let me know what's the latest and greatest. What's happening? Let people know what's happening.
Wow, we have so much going on, Tom. First of all, thank you for having me.
Oh,
This
my
is
God, our pleasure.
This is a real treat to get the word out of what's going on at the Historical Society.
Yeah.
I think people just driving by can see that we have a lot of building happening, but there's so much going on inside as well.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, first of all, real quick, the entire facility, the area is changed, right?
It sure has.
The original building's been renovated, remodeled. What's the right
Yeah,
word?
the mansion has been renovated,
Okay.
and it is beautiful. If you haven't been in lately, my gosh, it is just stunning.
It's worth it just to go by and go
Yes.
in.
Absolutely.
One time. You owe it to yourself to go in.
Yes.
Yes. And then additionally, what else is happening?
Well, the carriage house has also been renovated. Before it was the planetarium years ago. People will come in and say, I remember when I was here as a child and it was the planetarium. Like, yeah, things have changed a lot. Now that space has turned into the library and archive space.
Wow.
So we have researchers coming in, working on different projects. And then behind the carriage house is archival storage, where three-dimensional storage is as well.
Wow. Okay. So when did the new aspect of all this start? Because it looked great before, but it looks better now. I don't want to diss what was there before because it was very
Right.
good. But the improvements you've made are incredible. When did that all start?
I think that started in 2014, and in
Yeah.
2015 it finished up.
Yeah. So okay. So everything's raring to go. There's new construction there. Is that done yet?
Yes, not yet.
Yeah.
But between us and the Wood Morrison House, that happened right exactly to the east of the mansion is another building that was purchased by the Historical Society, totally renovated.
Completely.
And that is going to be first floor exhibit space, second floor education space, and it's beautiful. We have a lot of objects. Now, my job as curator is I'm in charge of the three-dimensional collection. So anything that's not a book, a document, a photograph, a portrait or picture, I'm in charge of that. So we have roughly 15,000 of those things in my three-dimensional collection. The Erie Public Museum started in 1898. So the organization started back then, and they've been collecting since that time. A lot of the things have been purposely collected, and there are several things that have just been dropped off, shall we say. And
Really?
That's part of my job is it seems like whenever I take a day off, and the staff, if they hear this, they'll laugh, because when I take a day off, when I show back up at work, there's something new there.
Really?
Another three-dimensional object, I'm like, hold it. We can't do this. Because getting someone, let's say the object doesn't fit in the collection, or we have 10 others similar already, they don't want to come and pick it back up. When people want to donate something now, I have them send me pictures via email.
Look it up online.
Or call me up, and we talk about it, or they stop by with it, the object, when I'm there, and I can say yes or no or maybe. But I have to make that decision right away. I've been on staff for about 2 years now.
Okay.
And when I showed up 2 years ago, a colleague of mine took me to our off-site storage, which was 10,000 square feet, with boxes piled up taller than me, and I'm pretty tall, and said, this is your project. This
Was
is
this
it.
a warehouse someplace?
Uh-huh.
Not even on campus.
It's
out
off-site.
somewhere. Yeah.
And I stood in the middle of the room and thought, what in the world have I gotten myself into? And cried. So
Yeah. The word curator got expanded.
it got expanded
Multidimensionally. What is this?
rapidly. At that time, what they had done is they had everything in boxes, and they had a spreadsheet with, in box number 1,
Yeah.
there are these 20 things in the box.
Little dolls or pots and pans.
Oh, just it was a combination of all kinds of things in a box. But when we went to look for something, you couldn't find. You go to the spreadsheet and say, "Oh, this uniform is in box number 138."
there.
You go to the box, it's not there, and that happened over and over again. It's like, okay, this system not working.
Yeah.
So what I have done is instituted everything in a database properly, where we have a description, we have pictures, we have locations now, and I can find something in our collection within 10 minutes.
Okay. How are you curating the odds and ends? What are you?
Okay.
Did you have to go through every box? So to
I
speak?
have.
Oh,
My staff and I. Yes.
okay. So you had to literally manage each
Every object.
package, so to speak, object, whatever that came in.
Exactly.
And then how do you decide what to keep? Well, that's your knowledge base. That's what you do.
That's what I do.
Yeah.
And I keep in mind the collecting mission of the society, which is we exist to define or to help exemplify the history of Erie County. I mean, we're trying to maintain the material culture of the community,
But
the whole
our
county.
history from where we were and everything that's happened here makes you a national collection to some degree, doesn't it?
To a
because
degree.
of the history of Erie, Pennsylvania.
Right.
Yeah.
But you can't keep it all.
Everything, yeah.
It's just not economically feasible, or it will never be
So
exhibited.
some stuff
so
just
much of it.
needs to be moved out the door.
Right. And that's what I've been doing
Big
for the
yard
past 2
sale.
years. Well, it's going to be a little more special, we hope.
No, I'm teasing.
I know you are. I know. But next year, that's the goal.
Really, for sure. I was
For sure.
teasing you.
No,
I didn't.
no.
Oh, this is a serious thing.
This is totally serious. As my team and I, and
Yeah.
I say team because I do have a paid part-time assistant, Amanda,
Yep.
lovely young woman, very organized. You have to be organized to work in my department. And then I've got a group of fantastic volunteers that work with me that help me look at everything and determine, is this important to keep in the collection, or is it just another coffee mug?
Now, these are not little items, by the way. There's some
Oh, no. We have everything from pieces of furniture
furniture.
to signage. We have the
Signage.
stained glass windows that were part of Erie's first city hall. They're gorgeous.
So those are critical, right? For
They
you?
are
They're
very-
valuable.
Very valuable.
And
Now,
they're nice to look at.
they need
they're art.
restored.
Oh,
They're
they need
art.
restored.
Yeah, we don't have them in public viewing right now, but someday I'd like to get the money to restore them because they are gorgeous.
They have a huge value.
huge value.
So if someone has an interest, they could help you with that.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh.
So
yeah.
these ended up in your storage area.
Off-site
And
storage.
you discovered them?
We found them.
You knew what they were?
They were buried, but we found them.
They were.
They were.
So
They're
still-
big, but they were behind a lot of other pieces of furniture and
And
boxes.
of course, like a
things.
lot of cut glass, stained glass, or whatever it is, it needs to be refurbished.
Right, and we're not moving it until we have to.
Yeah.
because I
In
don't
other
want
words,
them to
you could
fall
break
apart.
something or destroy the historical
Right.
value of it.
Yeah.
But something like that, it would make a beautiful wall display of
Sure
some
would.
sort.
Yeah.
How much space do you have for your items that you found? In the new space, how much space do you have to exhibit?
I don't know yet. That's
okay,
all
you're
in
working
the
on
works. Mm-hmm.
that. Yeah. And then you don't have to have everything out at once.
No,
So you have a logistical issue, which is what you've addressed.
I have.
Everything's cataloged.
everything that we're keeping is cataloged,
Yeah.
and everything that we're potentially not keeping. And we're going through American Alliance of Museum standards. So everything I do is ethical and standards based on this
There's
organization.
not going to be a subjective, judgmental decision made. It's going to be cataloged and assessed properly
Exactly.
by standards that this organization. That's what they do, or they help you do it.
Well, they have a lot of written standards, and eventually the museum here in Erie would like to be accredited
You get
with that
accredited.
organization.
Yeah.
So to do that, we need to go by their standards.
Well, you're doing due diligence on things
Exactly.
that were donated to you. It could be a little tchotchke, and you think it's worthless, and then you discover it belonged to someone.
Right. So
That's important.
everything that we look at, we go back to the original donation record,
Wow,
if there is a number.
if there is one.
And the problem is everything in a museum should have a unique number attached to it so that we can do
So
just
you're
those
starting
very
from
things.
scratch. You're building a brand new museum in some
Exactly.
respects.
Yeah.
Numbers, catalogs, and I'm sure people who've been to huge museums have seen these little stickers and numbers on things.
Sure.
So you're starting from scratch, so to speak.
Right. The problem is a lot of the things over time have lost their numbers.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So then you
Yes,
have to
sir.
go through a whole nother process of looking at the object a little more carefully,
Yes.
determining, is this important to our local history?
Do you get appraisers coming in? That's an expensive proposition.
do that.
No. So
No.
you're doing the best you can with the knowledge, and you have a good deal of knowledge, so you're not just flippantly looking at things. And
No.
saying, that one.
Right.
Yes.
And then sometimes,
Well, I know you're exercising caution because you don't want to throw that one thing out that
exactly.
had a huge value to someone.
And that can be tricky at times.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one man's food is another man's poison, but that's not
Right.
what you're worried about. You don't want to throw a piece of history away.
Right. Can I tell you a little story
Oh,
about
absolutely,
a piece?
please.
Found a piece of fabric, quite a large piece of fabric, and it was not in good condition at all. And I'm looking, and there's no number on it. Terrific. But you're looking at this going, oh, there's something here. So I showed it to one of my colleagues in the archive staff, and she says, I don't think it's that old the way it is. And I'm looking at it going, I think it is that old, because, I look at things a little bit differently, perhaps. So it's weird how sometimes things work out. I went into our archive storage, which is enormous,
Oh, yeah.
and found a box. And I don't know what led me to that particular boxes. We have a lot of boxes. And in it was a newspaper clipping. And there was no date on it, but it was a picture of a man holding a very large piece of cloth with some stains on it. And I'm going, okay.
In the paper.
In the Erie paper back in the 1950s.
Oh, wow.
I thought, well, this is interesting. And I'm looking at my cloth, looking at the cloth in the picture, going, I think there's a connection here. But there was no date on that newspaper. But the article went on to say this was a gentleman who lived in Cuba, who was a descendant of the Dixons that lived here in Erie, the Dixon Tavern. I think a lot of people have heard of that.
Yeah.
And he donated this cloth, which was a tablecloth used when Lafayette came to Erie in 1825. Lafayette, after the
Yes.
Revolution, did like this victory tour.
Yeah.
And he went all over, and Erie was one of his stops. Okay, well, I could have just assigned it what we call sort of a dummy number and went with that. And I thought, no, let's see if we've got to find it in the accession records or these original donation records.
Wow.
And unfortunately, a lot of them were handwritten, so
Yeah.
they can't be just searched
Computerized,
easily.
yeah. Mhm.
But there was no date on this article. But the back of the article was also covered or copied. And in it was a small little news story about an Erie boy who died. He was 11 years old. He was riding his bicycle and he hit a wire and he died. It was a horrible story, but it said he was 11 years old and he was born on this particular date.
So you got the date of the article.
So I was able to do the math, then went back to the original accession records, and lo and behold, it had a lengthy description of the tablecloth. It had a real catalog number on it, and everything was all there. It's like, bingo,
Wow.
found
Yeah.
it.
And this makes for a nice exhibit.
And
a
it makes
nice piece.
excellent. And we found other Lafayette things since then so that we
Oh,
could
really?
have some. We have a big platter, and that was through a newspaper article too. Very strange. We found a couple other plates and a glass or two.
Oh, so that's going to be fine.
That will be fun, and that's important because Erie was such a big deal in 1825 that Lafayette came
You'll
here.
get people coming from out of town to see this.
I think so.
You really will once they find out you have something like that.
Yeah.
And you have many things like that, or a good number of things like that.
I have some other.
It's hard to tell because you're only 2 years into this.
only 2 years
There's
into it.
thousands of things to assess, right?
15,000.
Yeah.
We do have some other things like General Anthony Wayne. I found some of his hair in the collection.
Okay. How did you assess that?
well-
it had some provenance on it. Right?
There was actually, it was in a frame and there was a label attached.
okay.
I mean, it's not well preserved.
No.
Something like that we will have to redo in time, quickly, hopefully.
Yeah.
They're
In the
just-
order of things to come.
Right. There's just so much to do.
But it's still, when you see these exhibits, everyone has a huge book behind it almost of how it relates to history
Right.
in not only our area, but the country.
We do.
It's fascinating.
We have a regional group coming this weekend.
Oh, yeah?
Griswold and Cast Iron
Here we go.
Collectors
You just perked
Association.
a dozen people's ears up.
Woo! Can't wait for them.
Oh, yeah.
Their regional meeting will be in Erie, the first weekend of August.
Appropriately, yeah.
And they called me up and said, we're going to meet in Erie. Can we tell you what we would like to see on exhibit? Because these folks know their iron.
Oh, yeah.
I said, sure. So I sent them a complete record, and we have, now don't be shocked by this, but we have about 700 pieces of Griswold
I
in
bet.
the collection.
Yeah.
But
The culture for folks collecting Griswold it's amazing.
it is.
It's amazing what people will pay for it,
Oh, yeah.
and mostly people from the Midwest and the West who can't get to it quickly.
Yeah.
Now, there's some frying pans out there that come here and people think they're wonderful, but Griswold is a huge name.
It is big all
Huge
over
name.
the United States.
Everywhere, yeah.
And internationally. It was sold internationally as
it
well.
was, yeah.
So these folks are coming. They've asked for 61 pieces of iron to be on exhibit. We have more than that in our kitchen now.
They know what you have,
I sent them a record.
and then they looked and said,
This
these
is what we want.
61 pieces would be an ideal exhibit.
Exactly.
Now, you folks will work together on this? Or?
We have.
All right.
And the exhibit is being produced, well, we're a little last minute, but it is going up right now. I mean, the iron is out. We're working on lighting
You're
right
going to have
now.
every Griswold collector in 50 states visiting you.
It's exciting.
Yeah.
So they're coming Friday for their own private showing before the exhibit is open up to the public.
And they're the experts at this. This is
These
what they
guys
do
know.
for fun, for
is what-
work,
yes.
for whatever.
Just because they love it.
They love it.
And so do I, because it is relevant to Erie County history.
Oh, heavens,
So-
yes. And you have collectors that like to see these things in case they're out and about. You know, it gives them some idea what they should collect.
Absolutely.
So-
And just because we have 700 pieces does not mean we have every piece that was ever produced. We do not.
I know.
And
But if you have a number 13 frying pan, let me know.
13, are you looking for that one?
Yeah. It
Good
seems
luck.
to have some huge, yeah, good luck. It seems to have some huge value. Now I got the whole world thinking, let's Google this and see what this frying pan looks like.
But what I tell people that have cast Griswold in at their homes,
Yeah.
I tell them keep it in the family. It is
Well,
such a wonderful legacy
A
of
friend,
keeping this.
she uses all hers.
Sure.
They're durable. They'll last forever. You know, you care for them properly. They're functional.
Yeah.
So even if they're not worth much because of what they were, they're still beautiful pieces.
They are.
I can tell you where some colored Griswolds are hiding out.
Oh, I'm looking for some mint pieces.
Just between
I am.
us friends. So that's going to be a real attractor to the museum. What other things do you think will draw some attention? I mean, in your opinion.
Well, we're also involved with the suffragette centennial.
Oh, wow.
That is a big movement here in Erie. The League of Women Voters have been working on getting all kinds of groups in town to do their part to get the word out about the 100-year anniversary, the centennial, but also to get people to register to vote and the importance of voting.
Oh, yeah. Go. So now it serves two community purposes.
Yeah, so we
Awareness
are part of
and
that.
let's get out and vote and be good citizens.
Absolutely.
Marvelous. So are they working with you, or how's that coming
We
about?
will produce an exhibit. It's under works right now
Oh, wow. Okay.
for the whole movement.
Yeah.
And then we're going to have our own event. But then next year, in 2020, there's going to be another big party happening, of which this exhibit will be part of that party.
Yes.
And I'm
Yeah.
excited about that because
Yeah.
that allows us to exhibit some things that haven't been seen in Erie for a while. I've been out.
Okay. Now the museum as it sits now, I mean, is it available for functions as well? Do you have
It
extra
is.
space, so to speak,
We do. In the mansion,
in the mansion?
we do rent out the first floor and sometimes the ballroom on the third floor for
I
special
didn't know.
events.
Okay,
We
that's
do.
right. Yeah,
we do.
all right. That's a nice space.
People
up there.
have weddings, showers,
Really?
different birthday parties. We have all sorts of events.
Yeah.
So if anyone who's listening wants to potentially host an event,
Yeah.
they can call and speak to our event coordinator, Karen, and she'd be happy to run down all the details.
And that's all in support of the museum. then.
Absolutely.
It's sort of a neat way to be a fundraiser without being obtrusive. You have,
Yeah.
not that people wouldn't care to donate, but I'm just saying it's a nice way to get people to visit.
Absolutely, because they get the whole building, and it is a
wow.
beautiful setting for.
Oh my God,
For
the grounds are nice. You have a ton of square footage. I mean,
Yeah, we do. I couldn't even tell you
yeah,
how much.
it's outrageous, all the
It
things.
is.
And
It's a
then,
big
and then
house.
every corner to me is manicured. I can't think of a better word. It seems to me
Yes.
that everything you do, the building itself, the ambiance is just amazing.
It's first
Because you can go
class.
into museums, they're a little run down. Things are thin sometimes in the nonprofit world, but you seem to have a good handle on keeping the presence of what that was
Yes, that's our
Original.
intent.
originally.
Yes.
And that includes the grounds and the outside of the building. That must have been a huge project to renovate that.
That was, and that happened back in 2015 as well.
Not that long ago. Well, it seems like not that long ago, but it's been, yeah. Looking into the future, what are your plans? Or is it just let's get this done? We have a ton of things on our plates.
Yeah, on my end, it's rolling through stuff, but it's like Christmas with us. You know, we look at something and go,
Oh yeah.
I have one volunteer, Bob. He is fantastic.
Yeah?
He will take an object and just research it to death, but he's finding so many interesting things that we didn't know we had by doing that.
Will you have enough space when you're done, or are you going to cycle the
Well,
exhibits through? Or
I think the plan is to rotate
yeah.
exhibits more often. And the future for the Historical Society is between the carriage house and that Wood Morrison house, they are currently building another exhibit building.
That's
And
fabulous. Yeah.
It is exciting because on the first floor of that building is going to be a major exhibit, of which I cannot say quite yet what it is.
All right, we'll
I
bother
know
you
what
when
it
you
is, but
find it, yeah.
I can't say. It's going to be exciting. And then the second floor, I believe, will be exhibit space, rotating, I'm hoping, of Erie history. And then there are plans for potentially other space to be developed for more exhibits.
With that, how many people do you have doing all this? It sounds like you need 30, 50, sometimes even
We
100
do.
with volunteers. What's it like at your house? 5 staff, 10 staff? How does this work?
Staff-wise, I'm trying to think. There's maybe 7 full-time,
Yeah.
a few part-time,
Yeah.
and the rest are volunteers. And
And
I
then
have
the rest of it's contract work for construction
Exactly.
and building exhibits and things like that.
right. The exhibits. We currently have a professional exhibit company in Virginia, but they're only working with the brand new space. They're not working with current space at the moment.
Yeah, so they're helping
So-
you design the new
and
areas
plan.
so they're appropriate. Okay,
And
good.
then the mansion, I'm sure, will be spiffed up with their help as well.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's good because that
That'll be
way
nice.
at least you have someone helping you do
right.
it correctly.
And we're going to have a first-class facility here in Erie.
Yeah.
And that's
Oh,
our
yeah.
intent, is to make it so that the people in the community are proud of their history and the way we're presenting it.
It's a fabulous opportunity for people to learn without being stressed. Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
It's fun to go through there. It's just to walk through, even if you care less about history to some degree. But I guarantee someone will see something that's interesting to them.
They always do.
They always
Even
do.
the board high school students that sometimes have
Really?
to roll through.
Yeah.
And if I happen to be helping with the tour and I'll point out a couple things, and kids will look at me with these wide eyes going, really? That's what that is? I have no idea.
idea.
So they get excited. Everyone, I think, does see
Well,
something
and
in there.
the furniture and the settings are they're ambiance all by themselves. It's just nice to
Absolutely.
sit there.
Yeah.
So you do have folks that can come in and have meetings and events, just to hit that again.
Yes.
Because sometimes if you have board members on your organization from out of town, this would make a great impression.
No
Instead
kidding.
of sitting in a boring room like this one.
Right. You can sit at the dining room table
Yeah.
of that house with the silver and china and
Oh,
all kinds of
really?
things.
Oh, yeah.
We have the original Watson china on exhibit. It's Limoges, blue, cobalt blue, and gold. Gorgeous china.
I didn't realize how many people collect that kind of thing.
Oh, sure.
And it's also, would you say it's a good place to reference something, at least look at it to see?
Sure.
Yeah.
And then I have people that call me up with questions, can I see something in your collection?
And you do that
And I do it on
on occasion.
occasion, I do. Now that I have more of an easier way of finding things. It's easier for me to do that. But I've had people call me up and say, my grandmother donated a dress, 50 years ago. Is there some way I can see it? And I've had
at the museum.
At the museum, and we will find it if it's in a condition.
If it's findable,
if
so
it's
to speak.
findable.
And
Now, if it's disintegrated over time, we
much you
can't
can
keep
do.
all that. But I had a woman come in probably 6-7 months ago, wanted to see this dress, got it out, showed it to her. She's crying, looking at it, saying, I remember this dress. And it was just such a wonderful experience. She lived from out of town. She wasn't in Erie. But this was her connection to Erie, was that dress and her memories of her grandmother. And I thought, this is beautiful. I love it.
Yeah. You're a huge networking event. It reaches all over the world.
Absolutely.
I mean, especially all the things that happened here
Yes.
over the last couple of 100 years. Now, any celebrations for you folks coming up, or I'm just trying to think.
Let me think.
Maybe
We have
I-
so much going on. Well, Dan Rice Days is the first weekend of August, and that's another facility.
That's every year?
It's every year.
Okay.
Girard, this is their community event.
Oh, okay,
But
right.
the Historical Society has 2 buildings in Girard.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes.
Are they exhibit buildings?
Well,
Or-
it's what we refer to as the White House and the Yellow House.
Oh, okay.
And they were part of the Battles estate.
That's right. I remember.
And
yes.
as a curator, I will honestly admit I have spent very little time. I've spent no time grasping those collections because that's a whole nother year project.
Becky, I was going to ask, when do you sleep? The way things are going.
Good question.
We're honored to have you here, Becky Weiser, who's the curator for the Erie County Historical Society, and you do a wonderful job. You're at 356 West 6th Street.
Yes.
And when are you open?
We are
If
open.
I
to
can
the,
ask, yeah.
We are open to the public in summer months.
Summer.
Tuesday through Sunday, 11 to 5.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
And then Monday, of course, I'm there, but that's more
By appointment, maybe.
by appointment. And then, like personally, I'm in offsite storage or
You're
they don't-
busy.
They don't let me out of storage that often, Tom.
You don't get out much.
I don't.
We're teasing you. And if someone has something interesting, maybe of value, or they'd like to contribute something, or at least just talk with you, of course, by appointment, and
Absolutely.
they should call you. I don't want to
Calling?
open up the floodgates here.
Yeah. No, people
Cautiously call.
Folks are always welcome to call, and
Yeah.
our number is 454-1813, which is the date
Oh,
of
yeah.
the Battle of Lake Erie,
Yeah.
1813. I'm extension 21
Okay.
to speak to the curator, and then my email, people want to send pictures,
Send some pictures. Yeah, that's easier, right?
which is very simple to do,
Yeah.
and that's BWEISER, B Weiser, at eriehistory.org.
Can't beat that. And they can also just Google the Erie County Historical Society and
Yeah.
and see all the things that you're doing. And I would suggest even someone who flunked history in grade school should rethink what life may have been like for them by visiting the museum,
Right, and I can get them
developing a new
excited.
interest, a new hobby,
Yes.
and I'm sure there's a lot of folks who just like to come by and do research.
They do.
And you're well supported in the community. We appreciate your visit here. Thank you so much.
Tom, it's been my pleasure.
We'll wait
Thank
till you get a little more organized, and we'll come. We'll have you come bother us again. Quotation marks. We'll come bother you, and we'll get an update on the Erie County Historical Society. Thank you, Becky, so much for being here.
You're
It's
welcome.
Great.
Thank you, Tom.